bit of a break, okay? And um, good. So I am going to do something interesting to make Mendy happy, and that is they came out with a fourth volume of the Harivna of Reb Zilberstein, and in his fourth volume on yesterday's parsha of Shmini, so to a certain extent, I'm taking the easy way out rather than go to Sazria Mitzora, even though we could very well have done the first part of Sazria, which is the mitzvah of Bris Milah. Just open the door 1 second. So, commenting on yesterday's parsha of Shmini, which has the various animals. So amazing. I love it. I'm going to begin by saying in chapter 1, this is my introduction. He doesn't bring this down, but in chapter 1 of Bereshit, I believe it's pasuk 26, the Torah says, Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. Now, clearly, that is one of the more challenging psukim of the Torah, because we know, as we said this morning, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and Hashem is one, and therefore, what is this Na'aseh, let us? So you'll look in Rashi, there are several different interpretations, but I'd like to put out there the possibility of Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. Who's the us? The God is speaking to all of nature that was created prior to man, with a clear understanding that each and every one of the creations that was created prior to man is going to contribute a little bit of their nature to man. So, interestingly, and I believe this comes about in this week's Parshios of Sazria and Mitzora as well, in the following way. Every other being, every other creation is either tahor or tamei. A cow, on the first day when it comes into this world, is a kosher animal. Until the day it leaves this world, is a kosher animal. And so it is with the non-kosher animals. The camel always stays. It doesn't fluctuate. The only one creature that fluctuates between pure and impure, between Kodesh and whole, between Torah and Tamid, is man. Fascinating. Further, which in of itself is a very interesting idea, that man is constantly in a state of flux. Good. Weiter. Beyond that, I want to suggest that man has a little bit of all the various animals. So if you look in yesterday's Kriyas Torah, chapter 11, verse 16, so the Torah is talking about the various birds, and the Torah is listening the non-kosher birds, and one of them happens to be the tachmos. And the English for it by article is the tachmos. So if we don't know which it is, so unless we have a positive Nesola in a particular bird, is kosher, we don't eat it. Okay. But why is it called tachmos? So the cheskuni on this verse says, ouch. It comes from the root hamas, tachmos, hamas. And hamas is literally a form of thievery. So amazing. I love it. That just as when it comes to, the mother points out in Aaron that if the Torah was not given, we could learn from the various animals the higher quality of life, including from the ant, the little ant. The Medrash teaches so powerfully, excuse me, that the ant, number one, has bitachon. Does that mean it has bitachon? That the average lifespan of an ant is 6 months, and it needs X amount to survive during this short lifespan, and it assiduously collects more than it needs. Why? Because it says, maybe Hashem will grant me arichas yomim, maybe God will grant me the ability and the gift of longevity, and I'm going to live more than 6 months, and therefore I will have prepared my sustenance. So that should that eventuality may thought, wow. So we can learn that from the ant, and most important, the Talmud goes on to say that when an ant goes and collects his food, it makes what we call that ant hill, and it starts gathering and putting on its hill. Listen to this, my friends. Pay from just for this next line. The rabbis teach us that once an ant has deposited food in its location, other ants respect it and do not steal one from another. Whoa. That they knew the nature of even the smallest insects. Amazing. Okay. So whereas the ant, the Namala, teaches honesty, this particular bird, the Tachmas, unfortunately has this ability, a nature of stealing and taking from others. And based upon that, Reb Silverstein uses this nature and builds upon the following very interesting halachic question. Okay, we're going to put this in the realm of theoretical. It never happened, never will happen, but to be able to talk and use various halachic terms. That's the purpose of our learning this morning. Here we go. So a gentleman comes forth and brings the following fascinating question. He hired a worker, and his monthly salary to this worker was 10,000 shkolim. Okay? Remember, this never happened. But we'll learn some very interesting ideas from this. And unfortunately, a few days ago, a robbery or a thievery, whichever word is a better word for English, happened in the business. That morning, the owner of the business put into the register, the place where the money was kept, an envelope of 5,000 shkolim. Good. At the end of the day, he went to retrieve it and sees that the envelope is missing. He asked each of the workers if anyone has any idea, seen this missing envelope, and everybody answers, nope, don't know what you're talking about. So what did he do? Whether the workers did know, did not know, but there was a video, right, in the, and that might be an interesting question. Okay, so whether there is a sign, not sign, leave that in the back. And that did make a difference, but he looks at the video, and sure enough, to his amazement, a relatively new worker is the one that is shown on the video to have taken the envelope. Okay? It's quite clear that at the end of the day, when the store where business was empty, video shows he looks all around and he opens up, takes the envelope, and leaves. And the owner of the business, whether it's that night, next day, approaches the person with the video, and he says to him that he is fired. Okay. Now, listen carefully. It just so happens that when he's firing this person, it's at the end of the month. Now, prior to this individual had been a good worker, and therefore he is entitled to his wages of the past month. So what he would do is, instead of asking for the envelope back, he would hold back 5 of the salary for the month, but the envelope contains 5,000 dollars, and therefore he would give him simply back, come on, 5,000. But there, the owner of the business is somewhat of a learned Jew, and now he says to himself, wait a minute, let's go, everybody, to Parshas Mishpatim. Now, what does the Torah teach in Parshas Mishpatim? So, interestingly, at the end of Parshas Vayikra, the Torah teaches that a Gazlan pays keren. What does that mean? That if somebody steals literally in the open, so such a person only has to pay keren. Keren is the principal. What he stole is not what he pays. And that's based on the pasuk in Archbishop 566. The Torah says, that the Torah says the Gazlan repays and pays back that which he has stolen. However, the Ganon, what's a Ganon? The Ganon is one who steals when nobody is looking. You want to call it in English, surreptitiously, etc. But such a person, the Torah says that, and this is in the Art Scroll, page 426, Pasuk Gimel. If he not say, Yadon Hagneva, if the theft shall be found in his possession, be it, the Torah says, Bishor Hamor Akset Bayim, whatever it is, Shnayim Yishali, he shall pay double. This is called in Hebrew kefel. So now, given that this act of thievery was done, not in the quote open, nobody was there, and he took it, ran out, and we know from the video that it's in his possession. The question is, can now the owner of the business hold back everything? Again, it's the end of the month. He's ready to pay him his monthly wages. He worked and put in a month's work, so he deserves his salary. The only question now is half the salary he's not going to pay him because he took it already from the envelope. The question is, the other half of the salary, can he keep that because it is the kefil?
Rabbi,
what do you think?
I think to answer the question, I think you have to understand what's the reason for the kefil. Why did do we have a reason why the Torah instituted the concept of kefil?
Okay, so let's start with the following. Interesting. Kefil is a knas. The word knas in Hebrew means a punishment or a fine. In other words, if a person steals $100, then he has to pay back $100, whether he comes forth and admits it on his own or is caught with the goods. That's not a penalty. That's not a punishment. That's simply repayment. He took 100, he's got to pay back 100. Now, the Torah doesn't give a reason for it. There is that very famous Rashi, whereby Rashi explains why might it be that he pays double. So Rashi tells us the following, that there's a basic difference between the Ganon and the Gazlan. Namely, the Gazlan is afraid of nobody, meaning not afraid of man, because he mugs the person broad daylight, and he's not afraid of God. And therefore, because he did not put the fear of man before God, he pays just what he took. The Ganov, on the other hand, who looks both ways and sees if man is watching him, and therefore he shows he's afraid of man, but he shows a lack of fear of Hashem. Therefore, he's punished Mendy and everybody else for that interesting lack of fear of God. Okay, so whoa, we're going and we're saying it's more of a spiritual payment than it is a financial. In other words, it's slapped on the wrist to the Jew who has his perspectives wrong. Okay.
Rabbi,
yes.
so I think you could say over here that he's being punished because he's lost his job. I think at least, like, you know.
Wait. 1 second. Hold on. So that's each particular case. And if the owner of the business should quote unquote say, okay, I'll give you a second chance. Just know you're a good worker. Just know that the video is working. Be an honest guy, etc.
Maybe there should be a penalty. There should be some penalty.
No. So the answer is, hold on a second. Obviously, we're not going to have this kind of subjective, response. But there is a few other points which have to be brought up. Now, first of all, just know that one of the reasons that the Torah says the Ganav pays kefil is because there is a halach principle that moder tiknas potter. If a person is a Ganav and he's got the goods in his home and he's caught the person who suspects, the person from whom the money was taken, suspects, and he gets a quote police bezdin warrant to search the house, and sure enough, they find whatever it is the person stole in his possession, he pays double. But let's say after a day or two, a month, whatever it is, the thief has trouble sleeping at nighttime. And he comes to bed and he says, look here, I stole this. I want to make restitution. In that case there, he doesn't pay double. Okay? So that's number one. The next thing is, listen carefully now. The idea is that we have, the idea, Bezdin today does not get involved with knas. In other words, I require, interesting to know, that there are different kinds of Bezdin. The Bezdin that we have today are clearly, to the best of our ability, the best we can do. What does that mean? Ideally, smicha to a qualified Talmud Chacham means that he received his quote smicha, what we call today ordination, from one who received smicha, all the way back with an unbroken chain, literally, from those who had smicha in Eretz Yisrael, going all the way back. We don't have that anymore. This has been broken. We do the best that we can do, but therefore, since the Bezdin today does not formally charge Knas, so today, if somebody stole, as the Torah says in Mishpatim, a sheep or an ox, that he pays 4 times for a sheep and 5 times for an ox. But forget, we don't have this dollar, it's called dollar and hay, 4 and 5 times, because we don't have Knas today. So if we don't have Knas today, then there should be no question. He should hold back from the wages 5,000, because he took the 5,000 from the envelope, and he should have to pay the other 5. What is the issue? Listen carefully now. There is a very fascinating point. That is, in halachic terms, called tfisa. Now, tfisa literally means to grab, G-R-A-B. Now, I'll try to give this as best a introduction as possible. One more time. If somebody clearly owes somebody else money, so halachic principle is a motzi nechavero, a love and a diraya. If A wants to extract money from somebody else, they have to bring proof. So Mr. Abramowitz comes to Mr. Bernstein and says, Bernstein, you're a nice guy, but you owe me $100. Now Bernstein, maybe, he's a very busy guy. He's busy all the time with so many different deals. So it's very, very possible he forgot. Mr. A says, look, I know you owe me. B says, so if B says, maybe I do, maybe I don't, then think about it. That's called borrowing the Shemet. Mr. A is claiming, I know for sure, and Mr. B is saying, I don't know. In that case there, B would have to pay Mr. A. But what if Mr. B, who has no recollection of this, says, no, I don't owe you. So if Mr. A has any kind of proof, and the best proof would be 2 witnesses, 1 witness. If Mr. A doesn't have 2 witnesses, he only has 1 witness. So from the letter of the law, you remember when you study the Gemara of a comma, that 1 witness can obligate Mr. B to take an oath. And since people were very weary of taking an oath, they would more often than not rather pay than take an oath. Okay. So now we have a different situation. We have a situation whereby, let's go slowly. The owner of the business shows the video to the Bezdin. Now, I have not had a chance to discuss with operating Bate Dinim today the usage and acceptance of video as evidence, but on the assumption that we get people who are knowledgeable and say that this was possibly tampered with, and this was not tampered with, period. And we know that it wasn't tampered, and the video shows that so-and-so is the culprit. So the Bezdin as much as says, based upon the evidence that we have from the letter of the law, yes, the person who stole the money should not have to only give back the money, but technically speaking, on a Torah level, there should be the penalty of kefal. However, we, the court, because of a technicality, we cannot, and the technicality is, one more time, that today the Bezdin can only adjudicate in the realm of mammon. Mammon means a monetary obligation, and not in the realm of kinas, not in the realm of fines and punishment. Fines and punishment was only given over to the Bezdin, which had smicha, this uninterrupted chain of tradition of ordination. So, without casting aspersion on anybody's smicha today, that's the reality. So the Bezdin basically says, our heads are tied. We cannot adjudicate the fine. However, given that, based upon straightforward Torah law, we have the following idea. Listen carefully. That if the person who's owed the money were to toe-face, now the word toe-face literally means to grab, G-R-A-B, take the initiative and take the law into their own hands. Now, wait a second. I know that this is going to sound like I am treading on very dangerous, unstable ground. The last thing I am advocating or suggesting is that we bring back, quote unquote, the Old West, whereby, or the Wild West rather, whereby people take, quote unquote, the law into their own hands. But now, the question is, in our situation, where the store owner has, quote, evidence, and this evidence, now, let me just show you that there is what you might call, all right, there's knowledge and proof. Amazing. The Torah says, Al-Pi made it. Torah says you require two witnesses. I don't have two witnesses here. The question is the video looked upon, okay? It can't be what it's not. But can it sufficiently be considered a valid form of knowledge to the court, that the court would say, based upon the evidence, yes, this person did take it. If so, the question might very well be that the owner of the business would have the right to hold back, you ready? And therefore not pay the worker anything for the past month. Again, his salary is 10,000. He took 5,000, a stove better, 5,000. So only 5 is coming to him. And now he is holding back the fine because that would be for the person Kefel. And even though Bezdin cannot pronounce and say you owe him the Kefel, but if the person took it, Bezdin would not say that you have to return. Whoa. So this is a very, very interesting, I don't want to say almost a wild concept. Now, the last thing I'm doing is suggesting that this is what the halacha is, but I am opening up the floor to very interesting application. So the first thing is, Lindsay will remind me, I will try to do a little bit of homework, or maybe a lot of homework, and see if this is going, if there's any leg to stand on in a practical sense in terms of how Bezdin would operate today. Now, just as an aside, there is what we would call circumstantial evidence, such as the Talmud in the Gemara of Basra 93a, and this Rav Rubinstein brings down. So I am quoting from his Sefer the following interesting case. There is a camel who is known to be a wild camel, okay? And what happened was the others, by definition, the camel is not a wild animal, but this one has a tendency. So we find that this camel was among others, and we find a dead camel. Really, one of the others killed us. So even though our natural inclination is to say that it was the wild one that killed it, we don't have the authority to rule upon our intuition, understandably, unless we have, as the Torah says, 2 witnesses that this was that particular wild camel that killed the other one. We cannot extract money from the owner of the wild camel because the motzi was another, meaning that whoever wants to extract money from somebody else has to bring proof, and as we know, best proof is with witnesses. Now, what would be the case here if we have this on video? Okay, that's fascinating question. Okay, how much authenticity and will we act upon that which is found on the video, which is, like I said, a very interesting point, and that is something which we have to be memorized, clarify. But this first point that comes out of this morning's discussion is a concept called visa. Now, very interesting. Just know that the way visa works, my friends, is I don't want you to think that um, tomorrow morning I'm going to go and grab something from somebody. And when they ask me, what are you doing? Yeah, I took something because you forgot that you owe me. No, no, no. Oh, excuse me. There has to be a clear um, portfolio that a person can, quote unquote, justify to the benefit why he has taken understanding because of the loophole or legal technicality, excuse me, that did not allow the benefit to extract the money on behalf of the claimant because of, as I said, in this case here, the Bezdin cannot adjudicate cases of Knas. So the
Rabbi,
yes,
so I have this very expensive jockey sitting on my in my den, right?
good,
And you're visiting my house,
good,
and then shortly after you leave, right? My thing that
missing.
was very expensive is missing,
Ah,
right? And now I come the next week. I come to your house,
and it's
right?
there.
And there I see my
Good.
tchotchke. When you're not looking, I turn it upside down and I see my initial on it, my initials, and it's mine.
Right.
So could I, when you're not looking, could I take it and put it into my pocket and walk
take
out
it
of
home.
your house?
That's right. Now listen carefully. If you were to do that, there's no question that not only will you have no guilt, but you'll feel good. After all. Now, could anybody suggest, you ready? Could anybody suggest that Mendy should not do that? Okay, let's start with, can anybody suggest? I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to, Mendy, but let's start
It sounds to me a little bit of lawlessness. You took his, he takes yours, and next time you visit him, hey, I was on my shelf last week. And it goes back to you, back again. You can play that game for.
Well, I don't know. Okay, fine. First of
I
all,
just it
first of
seems
all,
seems a
to
little bit
Mendy,
lawless to me.
one second. Okay, 1 second. First of all, to Mendy, obviously it's not a game. 1 second, but I'm going to
It
tell.
just seems lawless to me. There's no rule.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
no rule of who could do it, and it
Okay.
gets to be like a game. I don't think it is a
No,
game.
I don't like the word game. 1 second.
The
Sam.
game's not a good word, but it
That's
seems
right.
to be okay. You think you're gonna get away with it? I could do it too.
Okay, 1 second. So the answer is initially, I'm agreeing with Sam. But listen carefully, everybody. I want you to take out the chumash. Go to the art scroll. This is an important puzzle to see inside. Go to page 658, coming up soon. This week is Sazria Mitzora, and the week after is Achrimos Kedoshim. So in 2 weeks, we're going to read in Kedoshim, chapter 19, verse 11, page 658. Watch. The Torah says, black and white, the beginning of verse 11, lo tignovu, don't steal. Okay? So, we know, hold on, that in the 10 Commandments, it's written in the singular, right? Number 8. Number 6 is lo tirtzach, again in the singular, thou shalt not murder. 7, lo tinaf, thou shalt not commit adultery. And number 8 is lo tignov. Lo tignov in the Ten Commandments, lo tignov refers to kidnapping. That we know from the context. 6 is punishable by capital punishment. 7 is punishable by capital punishment. And now 8 also from the context, as we said every morning in Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Dava at the end of Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Dava halome me inyono, that which is learned out from its context. And since the context of 6 and 7 are punishable by capital punishment, so too number 8, and therefore we're talking about kidnapping. So if number 8 in the 10 Commandments is kidnapping, so when it says over here in Kedoshim 658, 1911, thou shalt not steal, here we're talking, as Rashi says on the spot, Gonev Mummo, right? Atorah Gonev Mummo, which is if someone steals literally something of monetary value, okay? So in such a situation, the Torah says that you is a biblical punishment for stealing. Okay, now, why is it written in the plural? It could have, should have said, well, tigno. Again, why the plural? So one of the many answers given, and there are many, it's a fascinating idea. If I know, this is not the answer, getting to the answer to your question, Mendy, in a second, but if I know, let's say, that somebody on the street is selling something for a very considerable quote discount, and there's something about the appearance of the person, etc., that very possibly he is selling stolen goods. So on the one hand, I say to myself, wow, it's packaged, it's clear that it's new. Here's my chance to get it at a third of the price. Okay? The Torah says, no, you're not allowed to purchase from the Ganon, clearly because you are promoting his business. The more he has people willing to pay the discount, the more he's going to be encouraged to, God forbid, steal. So one explanation is don't participate in the dealings of Agano. So lo tigno vu, you who are buying from the Gano, and you're the innocent bystander, you can't clearly benefit in this situation. Now, the rabbis give the second answer, and that is directly to Mendy, and that is as follows. And if you know for sure, and you actually find your object in somebody's home, right? So you're not, quote unquote, by the definition of stealing, taking, if stealing is taking that which is not yours, okay? Here, technically speaking, you're taking yours. Your initials are on it at the bottom, the way Mendy said it. But the answer is the Torah is saying, get it back the right way and don't, you ready? Interesting, take the law into your own hands. We don't want you to get the taste of Geneva. So we're going to have to explain to a certain extent why in the first case that Reb Zilberstein is presenting, perhaps the owner of the business has the right to withhold, okay, because it's already in his possession, as opposed to going and taking from, the person who actually, stole. In other words, the person stole 5,000. So given that he's caught with the goods and the Ghana is not admitting it, so from the letter of the law of Kefel, when and if we had the proper form of Bezdin, then the Bezdin would be the one to extract from the thief the additional 5. Okay? Here, it's not a question of this person, the owner of the business, going to the thief's home and taking an additional 5. No, it's a question of withholding. He's going to hold on to something which, from the letter of the law, might very well be his. So it's really, really not exactly the same. But the answer to your question, Mindy, is what is the circumstance? Is there a bezdin, or is there a mechanism whereby within reason, a court, ideally the Jewish court of law, because
So was Rabbi Silverstein is saying is that okay?
perhaps
You
the
saw,
key word,
you saw the person who took it out of the display case looked like X. So therefore, we don't need witnesses or anything else to prove that he did it. All that is out the window is because he saw a picture that looked like the guy.
no, not a picture that looked like the guy. We're talking about a video.
No, I'm saying the video looked like
No,
X.
no, hold on.
So X
So
is his
wait,
employee.
wait, 1 second.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure about that. Go ahead.
So listen carefully. You're saying well. So I guess, and this is where we would need, someone to give expert testimony on, quote, acceptance of video in a court of law. I imagine there are different angles, etc. But assuming, okay, that we have something which is not, from our perspective, 99.99.
So
1 second. Assuming the video catches the individual red-handed. So based upon that, I said assuming, okay? Then the question is a very fascinating one. And the last thing I'm saying is that he can, that Zilberstein is raising the possibility that if the owner of the business, the employer, who finds the employee to be a thief, if he were to withhold the second 5 and the employee, the thief, brings him to a bezdin, and listen carefully, he says, no question I was wrong, no question I stole. It's all there on the video. But let me get at least the other half of my month's wages. That's where I am suggesting, as does of Zilberstein, whoa, and this is exceedingly exciting, that maybe All I'm saying is maybe, but this is a very, so this introduces, write down these few key words, Sam, and do your homework. The key word you learned this morning is called tfisa. Remember, don't worry tomorrow morning that when you take off your watch, because you're putting on your tefillin, and then all of a sudden, when you put back your tefillin, your watch is missing, and you say, Yudin, did you see my watch? I say, sure, I took your watch because, now, I have to have a very strong because, and even then, the question is, why didn't I take you to court? You follow, etc., rather than you might owe me $200, whatever the watch is worth, etc. But clearly, a person, and the key word I'm using now is initially, we don't want to have everybody just who has time to go to court. I know you owe me $200. Oh, at the end I find out it wasn't you. It was, Nathan Refan. You know what? It's you can't have this with clearly, but every situation. But in our case here, given that he has it to begin with, meaning, does he have to pay that additional fine? Whoa! I think this is an exceedingly exciting case, which
Rabbi,
Yeah.
let me throw another monkey wrench into your thing. What would
Please.
happen if the only evidence that I had was his fingerprints were all over the cash register, all over the register wherever he took whatever he took, and there was just evidence, forensic evidence, I think they call it. Well, what do we do then? Is there a
Okay,
case?
so I'm sure there's a case. The question is it as definitive? You might be right. You might very well be right. my
I'm just
friend.
asking.
Okay, so hold on. So I told you the next step will be, please God, I will try to do a little. I find this very fascinating. I'll try to do a little bit of homework. But if you are interested, anybody, the key terms here is one, ovid inish, dino lenafshe, which means a person can, quote, take the law into their own hands. That's the first thing. And remember, we did not say this morning, and your buddies who did not show up this morning, you don't know what you missed. You missed such an exciting class because Yudin said, no. Yudin didn't say anything, but Yudin introduced through Rabbi Zilberstein. And remember, this is coming from his fourth volume, which is relatively new out on the market. So I find this to be a very, interesting question. And anybody wants, it happens to be on page, excuse me, 260 in the fourth volume. We're going to stop over here. So I'm glad I was, Mehdi, thank you for arranging the Zoom workout for Hashem. And I know I've given you exciting, different food for thought this morning.
Rabbi,
Okay.
don't forget to bench.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do it right now. Have
And
a wonderful day.
And tomorrow we're live. We're live tomorrow from the shul with breakfast.
Okay, wonderful.
Gentlemen, just keep in mind, gentlemen, that we have a 2:00 minyan on the scheduled. Please be there, so it won't be like last week. Nobody showed up. Okay, let's try to get into the habit of going to 2:00 minyan on Sunday. Have a good day, everybody.
All right, don't forget we have a
Bye.
breakfast Tuesday, bagels and lox. Make your reservation for that, and also about the special Yom Ha'atzmaut program. Hey, everybody, have a good day. I got to run.
You too.
Bye.